Right, today we are checking out the brand new F125 update, which is huge. It features many things, but here are some of the key elements we have. Now this is patch 1.12 or patch 1.12, so new features and Season 3 content available September 15th. Edition of F2 2025, including all cars, teams and drivers. Also, sports update for F1 2025 cars, teams and drivers, featuring a number of visual updates and sponsor changes. Then, available September 17th, Season 3 updates to the Podium Pass, including refreshed items and tiers and store items. And then September 18th, second driver ratings update based on real-world results from Belgium to Italy, Monza specifically. So that will be huge also for career modes in a few days' time once that arrives. And then we go to the patch notes themselves. We have computer-controlled drivers AI update. AI behavior has been updated so that they can brake later into and accelerate less effectively out of turns. In dry conditions, this will not affect overall lap time, but in the wet, they will be slightly slower. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Now guys, the video I'm going to show you is actually part of EA Sports F1 social media posts regarding this new patch, showcasing how they've improved the AI. So I want to show you this first for context, and then we'll judge and test for ourselves. But this video is very important for context, so guys, check this out.
After lots of internal testing and feedback from the F125 community, we're dropping an AI driver change on September 15th. Each of the gameplay clips on screen shows the new AI changes in action, with the focus car an example of what you can expect once the latest patch is live. If you take a look at the deltas, which compares against the old AI in identical scenarios, you'll notice that the new AI driver is able to gain time when entering a corner, but loses out on corner exit, particularly noticeable on slower corners. This is closer to how a real-world driver would tackle these corners, carrying a more appropriate amount of speed through the apex of the corner and when accelerating away. You told us that AI is sometimes too fast in the wet. With the changes to acceleration in particular, AI performance is now better aligned to how your car is expected to drive in the same track conditions. As a result, lap times for the AI in the wet are slightly slower, differing on a track and difficulty level basis. We believe these refinements better balance the flow of racing between you and the AI. Whilst lap times in the dry are nearly identical, you might want to adjust your difficulty setting to accommodate, as dive bombing into corners might be trickier now.
Now, let's get straight to it. We're going to go for a race, and we're going to go to China. Now, the reason we're doing China is because I recently covered it in my career mode. Now, granted, that was with a fully maxed out car, so it's not really accurate, but we would lose, no joke, 3/4 of a second through the banking in the dry. So I want to see how that changes. We'll do a quick little race, a 5-lapper in the dry or a 3-lapper in the dry, and then we'll try in the wet and kind of contrast and compare. I'll know straight away from my gut instincts if it has been improved or not. Now, one thing I'll note, historically, when we have the sports update and the updated car liveries and models, we usually get a list of what's changed. I can't find that anywhere. I don't think we've got one this time, so it seems to be maybe not as big as other changes, or they're saving it for another time. Either way, I visually can't really tell much looking at these cars. There's some minor differences on each one that I might be able to pick out, but I am genuinely clutching at straws and, struggling to find notable differences with all the cars. So they haven't really changed that much to my knowledge. I could be wrong. Feel free to point out in the comments some of the changes, but I think for the most part they are not wholly different. Now for this one, the one thing I want to do to make things interesting is probably pick a semi-decent car, but the most important thing here, I'm going to go for equal performance, because that way we're all in a level playing field and it's only dependent on AI level, so that will help us understand what we're working with here. So for this one, we'll go with Hulkenberg and see how we get on. Now, as you guys know, as always, no assists, maximum AI difficulty. We're going to set this to be a 5-lapper is fine. I don't really need to know what's going to happen. What I will do is a one-shot qualifying, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want to try and qualify a bit higher up, so I'm racing the faster guys and I can just see how we compare. So one-shot qualifying, what I'm going to do here is what I would normally do in my career mode. So we're going to basically just modify a preset. that is the best way to get an accurate read. So I would just basically run a 4 or 5 wing offset, approx 125 diff, and then we're only changing the elements that you are basically allowed to change in park for May. So we're going to just change those to what I think will suit best. We'll put some tire pressure on the right, we'll keep the rears a bit lower. This is usually a stressful track for the front left, so we'll max out the front left, we'll put the front right down a little bit, and I'll put a bit of pressure on the right rear, but the rear left needs a little bit more. So there we go. Let's go to track and let's try and get a lap together. Right, here we go. Lights go out and we begin our lap. Good to see. Also, if we can get some visual comparisons with the AI and see exactly what they're doing. Now, we're usually pretty strong through this first couple of corners. We'll always go quicker than the AI. Let's see. First exit out here as we floor the traction. Obviously, we are setup dependent, so we have to bear that in mind. But we keep the lead a little bit deep into the hairpin there. I'm used to the My Team cars, so the brakes and the default cars are terrible in terms of comparison, but we're holding P1 for now. There goes Piastri and a few others moving up. This is where we lose time, through here. So with P1, we floor it. I'm flat through there, absolutely flat. But we lose out to Piastri. We're okay through the chicane normally. This is where the big time loss occurs. So we're going to see this in real time. There he goes. Piastri drives off the banking pretty significantly quicker than us, so that's a bit of a concern. Right, we'll burn everything down to the hairpin here. Let's see. A little bit deep. We gained though, overall I'd say through there. 1 corner to go. Cut the apex. And we're just going to fight for pole. But Albon gets it. Damn, okay, fair enough. So Albon's AI looking pretty strong around this one. We get P2, so we'll take that. Right, this is what a qualifying, one-shot qualifying with equal performance looks like, and kind of highlights the AI a little bit as well. So, not bad. Obviously not much to read into. The key takeaways there, really, for me, were the double left-hander in Sector 2 and the banking. We still lost significant time. No big surprises other than Tsunoda's AI being at the back, so he's hard-coded to not be that great. But yeah, let's get into the race, and now let's see how they perform in race trim. This is it then, the moment of truth. No car work to be done, no setup work to be adjusted, no strategy. Just a 5-lapper, just to see exactly how we handle this. Same fuel for everyone, same tyres for everyone. So yeah, let's get to it. Right, lights on. I will refrain from taking the lead early on because I wanted to see how we hang in the pack. Away we go. Perfectly fine start. P2 is a good spot to be, just to see how Albon drives off these kind of crucial traction zones. And we'll just kind of study him for a lap or two, because it's not just those traction zones, it's traction zones like this one here as well. So on a curve where the AI can open it up with the traction control, you can already tell, I can see already I'm losing in acceleration. So we're basically pulling the time back on the corner entry, which they were meant to be improved at. Let's see through here. Usually we pull some time back on corner entry there, which we're still doing. And then on the exit, the delta goes up by 2.5 tenths. Piastri is onto us. So now let's see through here, the moment of truth. Taking the exact same line as Albon. A little bit of a wobble. To be fair, that wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad. We're not under pressure from Piastri. We actually gained a little bit on Oscar. And we managed to keep the gap the same to Albon. So the banking wasn't that bad on that lap. We'll see by lap 5, once some tyre wear kicks in and some overheating kicks in, we'll see then how things look.
DRS now enabled. DRS enabled.
Now this is a notorious time gainer. the first corner into turn 2 versus the AI. They're always pretty poor into here. Definitely felt like I didn't gain as much, but we're still able to close in and make time on corner entry. So they still seem a bit passive from that point of view. You can see Albon there drive off on the exit. Right, let's see. The gap is 0.6, half a second. A little bit of a snap for us, which isn't going to help. So now we're under pressure to stay within range through here. Gap is 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. Back down to 8. So it went up a little bit on that one, but not terribly. Yeah, definitely I'd say the banking isn't as bad for now. So you can still gain through here. We can confirm that. Corner entry. Still very much possible to crawl back on the AI and get some time back. Even here, setting up the exit. We'll lose a little bit. Not as bad though, I will admit. It's not as bad, but we still lose on the exit. That looked better. That, like, I matched Albon there on that exit. That was quite easy for me to match him on that one, even within the dirty air. It's definitely not as easy through here to gain time on them anymore. Like, I'd gain way more through that fast left-right chicane into the double left-hander. And this time we actually stay quite close to Albon through here, so feels like it's actually getting a bit better as we head onto lap 3, the halfway stage. Trying to open this up as soon as I can. Yeah. This was actually a more encouraging lap because we really did keep up with Albon quite nicely through there. That's quite a good sign. So now we'll run another test. We're now going to get in front and see how we fare in front of a car in terms of corner exits. So I'll try and pass Albon here. So eyes on the Delta. Let's see what we do through here. Russell goes quickest. So this time I don't have the dirty air. The AI don't really get dirty like the player does, so bear that in mind. So they should follow easier in the corners. Gap is 4.5, 4 tenths. And we keep it at 4.3 tenths. So that's a decent exit, albeit using battery. Don't know what the AI are doing, of course, on battery, but I'm just driving as a player. Albon gains 0.5 tenth on that corner exit. And now I'm just doing my usual battery strategy of charging through here and saving. Right, 3 tenths is the gap into that bit, 4 tenths. Back down to 3, into 2. Gap 2.3 into this chicane and banking. Trying to open this up as much as I can. Okay, so Albon keeping up pretty easily, I'd say. So, I'd say, so far, it is better. I would argue they've improved their corner exits more than I expected, but their entries are still pretty poor going off turn 1. So overall, so far so good. Last lap, let's see what happens here. So we'll close in. We've now got a bit of tyre wear. To be fair, it's not a lot, so the tyres are staying consistent, so we're getting a pretty decent reading of, you know, everything and how it's all going to work. Gap goes up by 1/10 on that exit. I was a bit slow to get out of none, but still lost a bit more time than expected. I always feel like the AI use a bit more battery on the last lap of the race. We lose 0.5 tenth there as well on that exit, so Albon is definitely giving it some. You can see he's got a bit quicker. The gap's just a bit larger this time. 7 tenths through here. For once, we actually gained through there. That's the first time. So maybe Albon was struggling for grip. Into the banking. Trying to get this power down as soon as possible. We lose about half a tenth. So overall, it wasn't actually that bad. Surprisingly encouraging last lap. But I don't think we're going to get the win. Albon's out of battery. But we're not quite going to go through. Good hairpin. You can see the exit there from the AI, not great. And we catch Albon napping. And we're going to steal it at the death. Okay. Decent.
Good job, gents. Good job.
Right, that was a really good test. I think I gathered quite a bit in that one, to be honest. Even it's just being a 5-lapper. The equal cars and the one-shot qualifying are really good neutralization elements to try and have things on a level playing field. The moment you do a 25 or a 50% race, you're prone to other elements like fuel loads, strategy. So this is the only way we're going to keep things relatively okay. I know I did change my setup a little bit, but it's no different than what I would normally do, if that makes sense. I didn't do any league racing setup or any SRC setup or any setup shop for that matter. It was literally just small tweaks that you and I would make, and they're all within park for May conditions. Now we're going to run that exact test again at China, but this time in the heavy rain conditions. Equal performance on, we're going to pick the Kick Sauber, and we are going to go for Nico Hulkenberg once again. Same settings, assists off, 110 AI, everything the same. I'll just throw on a one-shot quali like before, a 5-lap race, and crucially, the weather will be very wet. Now, in the wet, normally you can run inters when the AI run wet, but for this one, we're going to keep things, again, consistent 1-to-1. So wet tyres, and I'm going to basically modify the preset. Now, we're going to do the same thing again. The setup exactly the same. I'm not going to make any changes. So same setup, wet to dry. So we can also compare both conditions. The AI might run a bit more downforce, but that's purely speculative. We don't really know for certain. So all I will do is I will run a bit less tire pressure to have a bit more grip in the wet. That's one thing I'll usually do. So we'll put those settings on and see how that goes. Right, here we go. Let's see. Same setup as before, just slightly different pressures, but it's a very small adjustment. The car should still be the same. Right, default car in the rain. That's going to take a bit of a adapting phase, especially also just having driven this in the dry. So we'll see how quickly we can adapt and transition to these conditions. This car feels so slow compared to my team car. My God. Right. First bit of traction there, oversteer kicking in, losing out a little bit to Verstappen. So I'm trying to pull it back into this corner on entry. And we do recover some time. We go from P10 to P3 and to P1 eventually. So we do actually gain on that exit, having done a really aggressive entry. Right, through here, trying to open this double left-hander up. This is the critical zone, which I'm waiting to see. So we were P1, bit of oversteer, but only P3. We don't drop too far. There's Max. Oh, I'm a little bit deep into that. That's going to cost us a little bit, so that's not going to give us a fully accurate reading. P3 down to P4, back up to P3, and now dropping a little bit more as we just have to delay putting that power down. That wasn't fully accurate because I messed up the chicane, but that gap to Piastri is pretty significant, so the race will help also just determine what exactly is the situation that we're playing with here. But the brakes are not working for me. I've just got no stopping power. We do recover a little bit. One corner to go. Up to the line, P10. P10, I think. Not bad. Middle of the pack. I actually lost a little bit on the exit, so there we go. Right, there we go. Qualifying done. Pretty decent, I'd say, comparison, but we'll now get a proper test in the race because we'll hopefully build up some consistency and see how the AI do in race trim. So let's get into it. Right, let's get to it. Let's see how the traction is off the line. Lights on. My revs are a little bit low, but it's all good. Good start. I do believe, them working on the traction has nothing to do with their race start behavior. I think that's a separate procedure. We're making a good move here though, down the inside. We've got past a couple of cars and we're hopefully making a few more. Tempting to go 3 wide, but I'm going to try and set up the exit out of here instead. So down to none. Normally I would lose this traction battle versus the AI, but we've actually managed to get Leclerc. Ocon with a bit of oversteery exit himself. Around the outside of the hairpin. Let's see traction out of here. Just flooring it. We absolutely nail Albon there. So straight up to P5 from P10. Really nice start. And now we've got a really good car with Norris ahead of us as a visual reference to see what's going to happen in these conditions. Gasly the outlier in P3 in the Alpine. He might affect performance a little bit. Obviously it's equal cars, but his AI may not be as good as Norris. But here we go into the chicane. A little bit deep, trying to recover it with a bit of a drift. The gap is 6.8 tenths. I've got a drift going here. I'm trying to cut it out. But we still lose 4 tenths, 5 tenths. Not as good in the wet. Not as good in the wet. Here comes Albon. We'll just defend the inside. Can't really see much because of the spray, but we'll brake just before the 100 and we do manage to hold position. Norris going through on Gasly. This might give us an opportunity to move up here. Traction out the last corner. We actually do match and actually gain on Pierre a little bit. He's now racing after Norris here, but doesn't commit. You can feel that dirty air when you turn in. Trying to exploit this corner entry deficiency, which is still there. It doesn't seem as bad in the dry or the wet. Through turn 1. Exit. Not bad, not bad, not bad, traction-wise. Able to match and keep up with Pierre. He moves at the last second in the braking zone, but we are still able to make that pass and go to P4. So it seems in the wet at the moment, there's just a big deficiency at the banking. The rest seems better in terms of, you know, their difficulty level, they're raceable, but also their traction performance. Lost a little bit there to Lando, but not a lot. Literally half a tenth. If that. This is the one I want to try and get a better run through here. This time we do get our apex. We're going to short shift early. Open it up a little bit. Gap was at 1.1 on entry, but we still lose a quarter of a second. So I do think the banking is a bit broken. They're still a bit quick through there. We are pulling it back on the straight, albeit using a hefty chunk of the battery. I think we're obviously a bit lower wing. That might be a factor because of the setups. It's hard to tell what the AI are doing. Normally, when it comes down to setups and presets, you normally get put onto the same one as the AI. That's my understanding. So, in theory, they are on the balanced preset, but obviously we've just changed our wings a little bit. Bit of oversteer there. You can still gain time through here, but not as much. The gap is still 9 tenths. It hasn't really come down that much compared to what it normally would have done. So they seem a bit better on corner entry. Exit. We keep the gap the same. 1 second, 0.8, should I say. Through this corner. Let's see. We gain a bit on the entry there with a bit of a drift, but on the exit, we actually gained some time on Norris through there. So we gain on entry and exit. We have a bit of a horrible fast left, but we try and pull it back through here. We gain another half a tenth. The margins seem a lot smaller in terms of, you know, time gain on entry and time loss on exit. Lost a bit of time there though. Lost 2 tenths on that one. Norris having a really good exit, and we had a really poor one with some oversteer on the way out. Gap 1.5. We'll try a bit of a wider beginning, but I just can't find the traction. I can't find the traction through there. Gasly right behind. We're actually losing time to Norris here, so for me it's the banking that doesn't really work. They're still a bit broken for that particular corner. We'll manage and defend this one. We can gain some other areas which I'm surprised by, such as turn 5. Also, they're not as slow at turn 1 now. You can't really just throw the car in and gain half a second on them anymore. We've also used all of our batteries, so we need to try and save a little bit. But yeah, historically through here you would just throw the car in, you could probably claw back half a second. This has been a really good turn 1. We've gained 2/10 at the most, I'd say, through that. .6 on exit, and it stays at 1.6, so that traction zone has definitely been improved. This is where we gained last time. Bit of a flick on the entry. On the traction, yeah, we're quick through there. We gain a quarter second, so almost what we lose at the banking, we can almost recover it through there. Not quite the same. I'd say we lose still a bit more through the banking on average, but you can see we're gaining a little bit through these corners, assuming that's the corner entry benefits that we have. I feel like I'm really losing time through there now. Look at the gap to Pierre, 1 second, 1.1. Let's see, through this banking. From 1.1, what's the damage going to be? 6/10. So half a second is what we lose through the banking. So yeah, I stand by that. I think that's a pretty accurate assessment. Rest of the lap is fine. That's a terrible hairpin. Still can't get the braking right with this car, but we'll do some final takeaways in a bit after this race is finished. Piastri in the 151 mids. We're 6/10 off, which is basically what you lose at the banking, let's be honest. That's what we're losing at the banking. Although we had a horrible hairpin on that one, to be fair. I'll try and get a clean lap on this last one. A consistent lap. I feel like I didn't lose as much through the banking on Norris there. I maybe lost about 4/10. We went purple in the middle sector. There's one thing I'll note, which we can't test, but my gut feeling right now is that I'd like to try a set of inters, but we can't pick inters at the start of the race. But I feel like that's the bigger issue, is that the intermediate is probably the faster tyre right now. That's my gut feeling. Once you have a dry line appear, it likely means intermediates are the way to go. But yeah, final lap, let's see. 50.7 from Max. We're gonna get close. 51.0.
I'm pretty happy with that from my point of view. I was pretty clean and I drove well, I think.
Yep, I'll take that. Learned a lot in that one. Right, so there we go. 2 tests done, dry and wet. Key takeaways for me, overall, it's an improvement. They're better. This is only one track. I feel like the more we play the game, the more we try things, try different conditions, strategies, setups, fuel loads, league races, career modes, we'll get a better understanding how much it's been improved. I'm really keen to see, once I get my hands on career mode, once the mods are working with this new patch, I'll be keen to see how they perform over there with fully upgraded cars. But for now, this was pretty conclusive evidence and a pretty decent test. Anyway guys, I think that was a good one. I think we gathered some pretty good information. I'd say generally speaking, my message for this would be they are improved. I think you're going to have a much more balanced experience, but those tracks that have particular exploits or there's very big weaknesses, they're likely still going to be a bit slow or quick, depending on what it may be. So in this case, at China, the 2 main areas for me really were whether it's dry or wet. I'd say in the dry, turn 1 you can still gain quite a bit of time back on the AI, but then you lose a lot in the banking. In the wet, I'd say turn 1's fine. It's actually turn 5 where you can gain a lot on the entry and the exit, and you can kind of exploit them through there, but then you also lose a hell of a lot more on the banking. I'd say actually, if anything in the dry, you maybe lose a bit more through the double left-hander, which is just before Sector 2 ends, rather than the banker itself. So that's the case of China, which was the most obvious example I could think of, where they're really strong and have some really big traits where they're on and off the pace, fast and slow at different points in the lap. So guys, I want to hear your experience so far. If you've played today so far, what do you think of the patch? I want to get some feedback going, also things I can probably send to Codemasters to hopefully give them some feedback. In the meantime, I'd appreciate a like on the video, subscribe for more, and yeah, I'd massively appreciate you guys checking out the 2 videos on screen. As always, a massive shout out to the channel members, and yeah guys, just watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care, and let's come back from me. Ciao, ciao.